Infinite Wealth opens up on a dark, rainy night. A husband and wife discuss matters as their driver screeches to a sudden stop. Believing he saw someone on the road, the driver looks around and is shot in the head by a stranger. The assassin then proceeds to murder the couple efficiently and quickly in their vehicle. He then removes a unique-looking necklace off the husband. A shadowy figure arrives and accepts the necklace from the assassin, then promptly murders him as a reward. We cut to Ichiban Kasuga, working at the Hello Work office. It's been 3 years since the end of Like a Dragon. Using his position, he's been helping the local ex-Yakuza find work out of the trade. After the dissolution of the Omi and Tojo clans, ex-Yakuza have been having it hard finding their way due to the 5-year ex-Yakuza clause in Japan, making adjusting to regular civilian life nearly impossible. You can't even rent a home, and if you don't have a home, no one will hire you. An ex-Yakuza man causes a scene with Ichiban, as Ichiban's unwilling to help someone who isn't willing to put in the effort. The man approaches Ichiban after work thinking he is only helping Yakuza through bribes. He declines the bribe, and a fight breaks out. In the process, the money falls the polluted river. Ichiban dives in and gathers the man's money. He's inspired by Ichiban's kindness and realizes how much he's been half-assing things. Ichiban promises to help him crawl out from the gutter as long as he puts in the effort. The next day, the Yakuza arrives putting in actual effort, and Ichiban offers him a job shoplifting for Adachi's investigation and security consulting company. His name is Sasaki, and he is taken aback by how far Ichiban has gone for him and wonders if there's an ulterior motive. Ichiban explains that he sort of does, as it was Master Arakawa's wish to build a safe place for all ex-Yakuza to turn to after the Great Dissolution. But sadly, Arakawa did not live to see his dream realized, and Ichiban has taken on the task even if he can only help each Yakuza one by one. Later that same night, Adachi, Nanba, and Saiko meet up for drinks and catch up. Since the end of Like a Dragon, it seems as though Ichiban has grown feelings for Saiko. Adachi and Nanba encourage Ichiban to ask her out that night. Although Ichiban thought he blew it, Saiko accepts his invitation and make plans to meet up the next weekend. The date starts off awkward, but eventually the two have a overall good time, although things do end poorly, as Ichiban, being who he is, asks Saiko to marry him on the first date. Things get awkward, and Saiko doesn't know how to respond and tells Ichiban that they should head home for the night. The next day, Ichiban tries to figure out what went wrong and gets some terrible advice from Nanba and Adachi. He then heads to apologize to Saiko before she goes into work, and she lets him know that it's not a big deal, as while working in a cabaret, she hears all sorts of crazy things. She simply tells him that the way the two met was very weird, and describes their relationship as a partner in crime. She thinks that having some romance between them may complicate what they already have. She tells Ichiban to keep at it, and that she'll always have his back. A year passes by, and we cut to Ichiban waking up at his home. He looks at his phone, and looks at an unread message to Saiko dated 1 year ago, asking how she's doing. It looks like the two haven't spoken since that day. He lets out a damn it, then snaps out of it, and heads to work. When he arrives, he is called into a meeting by his boss. It looks as though Ichiban's work contract was terminated early, claiming it was for budgetary cuts. He's saddened by the news and says bye to his co-workers and heads home. When he arrives, a group of young thugs begin to harass and point cameras at him. They claim Ichiban takes bribes from former Yakuza and ships them off to shady jobs all over town. The thugs came to get more information out of him and are trying to make a viral video, trying to frame Ichiban as being unhinged and violent. Ichiban wonders what they want and where they're getting this info. They claim he's gone viral online. Ichiban, barely using the internet, doesn't understand until the thugs show him a video of a VTuber named Tatara.
What's up, people? Tatara channel coming at ya. Let's get to it. Ladies and gents, our perp of the day. This man here is Ichiban Kasuga, a former gangster who was heavily involved in the dissolution of 2 major Yakuza factions 4 years ago. On top of that, some people even call him the hero of Yokohama. This exclusive footage was secretly recorded in Yokohama at a real Hello Work. Here we see none other than Ichiban Kasuga brazenly working the front desk. Meanwhile, the man sitting across from him is yet another former Yakuza.
The hell is this? Sasaki? This was like a misunderstanding!
Ichiban Kasuga seems to be whispering orders to his ex-Yakuza cohort. Then, having received his instructions from Kasuga, the ex-Yakuza leaves Hello Work, only to make a beeline for a mini-mart, a drugstore, and a fancy boutique. We catch him stealing things right off the shelves, even going so far as to use a fake hand.
Hey, hold up. That ain't right.
Finally, it looks like Kasuga then buys the items from his personal thief at a deep discount. According to our extensive research, in just this day, a whopping 2 million yen's worth of product was stolen. Kasuga bought the lot for an unheard of 20 grand. In other words, he's having down-and-out ex-Yakuza steal for him, then making a tidy profit reselling the stolen goods. This is the secret. No, the true face of the hero of Yokohama!
Hey, what the hell?
After showing him the video, the thugs try to extort him for money. He defends himself, and afterwards Adachi calls him on his phone, letting him know he has to shut down his business, and that Nanba was fired from his job as well. The three of them meet up and try to figure out what's going on. The Tatara channel is a popular content creator with over 5 million subscribers, focused on what Nanba describes as call-out videos, ranging from political scandals to celebrity drama. The Tatara channel gained its notoriety from being well-researched and credible, as most of the stories it comes out with end up being true. Nanba tried contacting Tatara, but has had no luck so far. He also believes the damage is already done, as the audience has already made up their mind about them and don't necessarily care about the truth. Even if the video is removed and corrected, their image is still in pieces. Ichiban drops to his knees and begs the two for forgiveness, believing this is all his fault, as he is clearly the target of whoever is creating these lies. His friends tell him that they've been at rock bottom with him before and have no problem crawling their way back up with him again. A few days later, Adachi and Nanba arrive to talk. After having to close his business, Adachi had to let go of Sasaki, the Yakuza trying to turn his life around from a year ago. He received word from a friend that Sasaki joined the Seiryu clan after not being able to make it in civilian life. From the information he's gathered, the Seiryu clan are taking on many new members. With Hoshino dead and their new chairman Takabe in jail, someone in the clan is making maneuvers and plotting something. Ichiban, wanting to stop Sasaki from throwing away all the progress he's made, vows to head to the Seiryu HQ and find out what's going on. Adachi and Nanba say that they will join him, and a new adventure begins. The party tries to enter the Seiryu HQ through the front door, hoping their past dealings with them would help, but they're unable to make any progress with the doorman. But after asking around, the homeless chief shows a way to get through using the underground sewer passages. Their goal is to head to the chairman's office and meet with whoever's currently in charge. The party meets some resistance on the way, but they're ultimately able to make it to their destination. Inside, the party meets Masataka Ebina, the Seiryu clan captain, calmly awaiting their arrival. Due to Chairman Takabe's absence, Ebina is currently in charge. Ebina joined sometime after the Great Dissolution and is a new addition to the Seiryu clan. He says he's heard much about the heroes of Yokohama from Takabe. Before talking further, Ebina has everyone taken to a warehouse near the harbor. He further explains that after the Great Dissolution, even members of the Seiryu clan wanted to leave the Yakuza life behind. But due to the 5-year ex-Yakuza clause, most would never be able to make an honest living and be forced to live on the streets. So the chairman devised a plan so that those members had a chance. After purchasing the old Liumon warehouse, they converted it into what Nanba describes as a giant safety deposit box for cursed objects that should have been destroyed. For example, evidence against the president or illicit money transfer records, things that should have been destroyed. They store this trash for safekeeping, and if the client requests it, the trash will be destroyed. Ebina explains that there's an estimated 10,000 Yakuza affected by the Great Dissolution, their best option being joining smaller local groups like the Seiryu clan, as not all can weather the 5 years of the ex-Yakuza clause, never leaving the life behind as long as there's still houses that will take them in. For this reason, Chairman Takabe plans to coordinate with all remaining Yakuza clans and quickly dissolve them as well. The second Great Dissolution plan. Ebina has been acting on Takabe's behalf while he's away, but the second dissolution will only be carried out after enough jobs have been secured, like the trash disposal company. Ebina ensures the party that their goals are the same. Arakawa's dream, to give every last Yakuza a chance at a normal life. While discussing, Sasaki noticed Adachi and Ichiban and apologizes for trying to go back to the Yakuza, but he's thankful as Ebina said he could stay a civilian and work at the trash facility. Ichiban is impressed and thankful to Ebina for what he's done so far, and asks him to see this project through so that no Yakuza is left behind. Ebina vows to carry on Arakawa's dream. Before the party heads out, Ebina tells Ichiban that there's someone who would like to meet him, and from the shadows walks out Joe Sawashiro, ex-captain of the Arakawa family. Joe was last seen taken into custody for the murder of the Seiryu family chairman, Hashino, but it's revealed that Hashino was already assassinated by a different hitman by the time he arrived. As Masato found out, Ichiban and the others were tipped off by Joe that Hashino was in danger, hoping that Ichiban would arrive in time to stop him. But Masato was one step ahead and had the chairman killed by someone else. Joe went along with this setup, believing it was his due punishment for all of his sins, planning to spend the rest of his life in prison. But one day, Ebina's attorney showed up, saying he would be able to prove Joe innocent, all for the second great dissolution. Joe believes he was brought in to further Ebina's reputation and keep all the stray Yakuza in line. Joe then tells Ichiban to meet him the next day and to get a passport, as he needs to ask him an urgent favor. At the meeting, Joe tells him that there's someone who would like to meet Ichiban, his birth mother, and Masumi Arakawa's one love, Akane. Many years ago, the Hikawa family patriarch wanted to marry off his daughter to Masumi, but at the time Masumi was already with Akane, so he fearfully turned down the patriarch's offer, leading to the dispute and Akane's supposed death, ending in Masumi wiping out the Hikawa family in retaliation. In their final confrontation, the Hikawa family patriarch revealed to Masumi that Akane stowed away on the ship to the Philippines, but he's already called his men and contracted professional hitmen to kill her. Afterwards, Masumi formed his family and his subordinates went on a search for Akane, but nothing ever turned up. Believing if she had survived, Akane would have contacted Masumi. 10 years went by since she went missing, until Masumi received an emergency call from a Filipino colleague saying he found a girl in Hawaii that looked exactly like Akane. Masumi then sent Joe to Hawaii to investigate as soon as he heard the news, not going himself in fear of his hopes being crushed again. Joe confirmed that the girl was indeed Akane, but in fear of Akane returning to Japan may cause issues for Masato and himself, Joe had planned to kill Akane, but stopped when she told him that if anyone asks, Akane has been dead for a long time. Revealing after everything that happened in Japan, eventually Akane moved on and was living her own life. Joe honored her wish and reported to Masumi that she was dead when he arrived. Masumi accepts his report and the search for Akane was called off, and she was never spoken of again. But Joe kept in contact with Akane to make sure she never grew homesick and returned to Japan. But the situation is now changed. With Masumi now dead and Joe out of prison, he wrote a letter to Akane and told her everything there was to know, explaining his betrayal and how her true son Ichiban Kasuga grew up in a soapland. Akane wrote back to Joe saying she wishes to meet Ichiban. Joe hands Ichiban an envelope with her address in Hawaii. Joe tries to relate to Ichiban's situation, saying it must be strange being in your 40s and being asked to meet your mother for the first time. But his mother is only getting older, and a son should set a mother's mind at ease before she passes on. Joe is regretful for everything he's done, hoping this act will mend some of the pain he's caused. He bows and begs Ichiban to go see his mother, not for him, but for her. Ichiban is surprised by his request and expresses how he never thought he'd see the day Joe would be bowing to him. He then accepts his request to travel to Hawaii and meet Akane. Afterward, Ichiban updates the party on the situation and they visit Arakawa's grave. Adachi is saddened that Masumi Arakawa never learned Akane was still alive and that Ichiban truly was his son. Ichiban says blood son or no, it doesn't really matter to him, as he's always considered Arakawa as his father. He simply says that he has two dads, his boss Arakawa and Jiro Kasuga, the man who stepped up and raised Ichiban when he had no one else. Adachi is annoyed that Ichiban's stubbornness to not learn the truth once and for all by getting a DNA test. He then notices Ichiban's carrying a pendant. Ichiban explains the pendant contains some of Arakawa's ashes and wishes to give it to Akane if she accepts it, believing it would make his boss happy. Later that day, Ichiban gathers his things, says goodbye to his friends, and takes the next plane to Hawaii. After waking up from his long flight, Ichiban noticed the flight attendant struggling to help a paralyzed young man in his wheelchair. Ishiban steps in and gives the attendant some pointers on handling the young man. They're all appreciative for his help, and the young man assumes Ishiban has done this sort of thing before. He simply explains that an old friend of his spent most of his life in a wheelchair. The two of them then wish each other a fun vacation and part ways. Outside of the airport, Ishiban finds a taxi driver who's able to speak Japanese. He then shows the driver Akane's letter with the address. The driver says it's pretty far away and asks if this is Ishiban's first time in Hawaii. He says yes, and the driver agrees to take him. The two of them make small talk during the long drive, even bonding over the fact that they're both split Japanese and Hawaiian. Sometime later, the driver asks to look at the address one more time, and Ishiban hands him the envelope. The drive then gets quiet for a while before Ishiban asks if they're almost there. Commenting from what he looked up, Akane's home should be in the suburbs, not in the middle of the city. The driver looks up at Ishiban through the rearview mirror and his tone shifts, then quickly turns the taxi into an empty alleyway and slams on the brakes, disorienting Ishiban. When he looks back up, the taxi driver is pointing a gun at him, commanding him to get out of the car. The driver taunts Ishiban, saying this is why he loves the Japanese, as he finds them gullible and easy to rob. He then tells Ishiban to give him his wallet and his smartphone, but the hero of Yokohama is unfazed and disarms the robber, saying if you want to know someone is going to shoot you, look at their eyes, recalling the time Ishiban was shot by Arakawa. Fight then breaks out between the two. After handling the thug, Ishiban asks him to hand over the envelope, but instead he decides to eat the envelope and get the attention of nearby police, then poses as if he's getting robbed by Ishiban, acting scared and begging for the police officers' help. The police officers then begin to apprehend Ishiban, but from the other end of the alley, the young disabled man from the airplane appears, telling the police officers the true criminal is the taxi driver, showing footage he recorded of the taxi driver pointing a gun at Ishiban a few minutes ago. The driver then uses a few moments of confusion to try and run away, and the police officers immediately follow after him. The young man's name is Eiji Mitamura. After leaving the airport, Eiji noticed Ishiban hop into a suspicious-looking taxi. Ishiban was so kind to him on the plane that he worried for his safety and followed him. Ishiban is thankful and introduces himself. During their conversation, he remembers the taxi driver ate Akane's envelope. He fears he may have traveled for nothing, as he never wrote down her address anywhere or thought he would lose something so important. Thankfully, Eiji has an idea. Using the footage he recorded of the robbery, he thinks he can make out the address, enhancing the footage with his laptop back home. On the way, the two bond and take in some of the sights of Hawaii. Ishiban has a chance to reminisce about his time wheeling around Masato Arakawa. Once they arrive at Aiji's place, he's successful in finding Akane's address for Ishiban. But before they can celebrate, they hear the sounds of glass shattering and look up to see a group of men breaking in, followed by the robber taxi driver. The group is led by a man wearing a large warm coat, holding a crowbar over his shoulder, Yutaka Yamai. He calls out to the taxi driver asking if these are the men who are causing him trouble. The driver, now known as Tomizawa, says yes. Yamai takes a look at Ishiban and recognizes him as the hero of Yokohama. Ishiban is surprised to see Yakuza in Hawaii. Yamai wants money for the car that was impounded due to the robbery. Ishiban asks why Tomizawa isn't paying him back, as he's the one who lost it. Yamai simply says Tomizawa is worthless and beats him with a crowbar. He explains that Tomizawa used to owe him money, but due to the lack of income, Yamai offered him work. He then notices Aiji's laptop and plans to take it as payment, but Ishiban vows to protect Eiji, and a fight breaks out. After the fight, Ishiban quickly grabs Eiji and gets him out of the area, fearing more henchmen will come. The next day, Eiji and Ishiban part ways. He thanks Ishiban for his kindness and for treating him like a regular person. Ishiban thanks Eiji for all of his help and apologizes for dragging him into all of this mess, promising after things settle down, the two of them should meet up again. Next, Ishiban takes a real taxi to his mother's house. As he walks up to her home, he asks himself what he should even call Akane. He gets a bit nervous, but eventually decides to knock on the door. No one answers at first, but after some time, a woman asks Ishiban to come in. We then cut to Ishiban being interrogated in a police station. Apparently, he was taken in for public indecency. It's revealed when Ishiban walked into Akane's house, he met a young woman named Chitose, claiming to be Akane's house sitter. She says Akane will be out until the next day, so the two spent some time together on the balcony, drinking and talking. But Chitose spiked one of Ishiban's drinks, causing him to pass out. Waking up the next day, on the beach, no wallet, no passport, not even the clothes on his back.